The courtroom was silent, heavy with the weight of tension that pressed against the walls like an invisible force. Every breath, every shuffle of feet, every tick of the clock above the judge's bench seemed to echo louder than usual. At the center of this silence stood three young adults, triplets, no older than 21, holding hands as if their unity was their only shield against the storm that had engulfed their lives. They had come not only as children but as defenders, protectors, and voices for their mother, who stood accused of crimes that seemed too unbelievable to be true. Their mother, Elena, was a woman who had raised them with nothing but resilience and quiet strength. She was not a woman of wealth, nor of privilege. She was the kind of mother who sacrificed her own needs to ensure her children were clothed, fed, and educated. The charges laid against her painted her as a manipulator, someone accused of forging documents to steal from a wealthy estate, a crime punishable by years in prison. But the truth, as the triplets knew, was far deeper than the surface allowed. At the head of the courtroom sat Judge Alexander Sterling, a man of commanding presence. He was known in the legal world as a billionaire-turned-judge, an enigma who chose to trade his corporate empire for the gavel of justice. His sharp eyes observed every detail, and his reputation was one of ruthless fairness. People whispered about his mysterious past, his decision to leave wealth behind, and his secretive personal life. The triplets, Daniel, David, and Diana, stood tall. Each one resembled the other with striking symmetry, dark hair, piercing hazel eyes, and a certain quiet dignity. They had rehearsed their statements, but their hearts pounded with uncertainty. For though they had prepared to face the accusations, nothing could have prepared them for the revelation that was about to unfold, a revelation that would change their lives forever. Elena's lawyer, a middle-aged man named Crawford, adjusted his tie nervously and whispered to her, "Stay calm. Your children are strong. They'll speak from the heart." Elena nodded, though her hands trembled. She looked at her children with pride and fear mingled together. They were her everything, her reason for surviving hardships, for working endless nights, for pushing forward when the world seemed cruelest. She could not bear the thought of losing them, nor could she allow her past to destroy their future. Judge Sterling's deep voice cut through the air. "This court will now hear statements from the defense." Daniel, the eldest by 2 minutes, stepped forward first. His voice was steady, though his hands clenched at his sides. "Your Honor, my name is Daniel Carter. My siblings and I stand before you not only as children of the accused, but as living proof of her character. Our mother is not a criminal. She is a survivor. Every meal we ate, every book we read, every lesson we learned was provided by her sacrifice. If she signed papers or handled documents, it was not to deceive, it was to protect us from poverty, from hunger, from despair. She taught us to live honestly, even when the world gave us nothing." His words filled the room with raw sincerity. Even the prosecutor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Next came Diana, the only girl among the triplets. She stepped forward with tears brimming in her eyes. "Your Honor, I want to tell you who my mother really is. She is the woman who walked miles in the snow so I could have a dress for my school recital. She is the woman who went without food so we could eat. She is the woman who told me that even if the world is cruel, we must always choose kindness. If the law sees her as guilty, then I beg the law to see me guilty too, because I have lived every moment of her struggle, every sacrifice, every pain. She is not just my mother. She is my hero." The courtroom grew quiet again, her words lingering like a soft echo of truth. Finally, David, the quietest of the three, spoke last. His voice was calm, but there was a hidden strength beneath it. "Your Honor, I know evidence can be twisted. I know papers can say one thing, and the truth can say another. But I ask you not to look at signatures or documents alone. Look at us. We are the evidence. We are the result of her life. If she were the criminal you believe her to be, would we stand here as we are? Strong, united, hopeful. She gave us life, not lies. She gave us love, not theft. That is the truth." Judge Sterling leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. But inside, a storm was brewing. His eyes lingered on the triplets, on their faces, their voices, their very presence. Something deep within him stirred, something he had buried for over 2 decades. Their eyes, those hazel eyes. Their features, too familiar. His chest tightened as realization clawed at his heart. Could it be? Could these children be his? His mind flashed back to a woman from his past, Elena. She had been his first love, the one he had left behind when his family forced him into a world of power and wealth. He remembered the night they parted, the promises made and broken, the silence that followed when he never saw her again. He had always wondered what became of her, but duty, pride, and shame kept him from searching. And now, here she was, accused in his courtroom, with 3 children who bore his very image. Sterling gripped his gavel tightly, fighting the emotions threatening to overwhelm him. "The court will recess for 1 hour," he declared abruptly. Whispers rippled through the room as everyone rose. The triplets held their mother close, while Sterling retreated to his chambers, his mind a whirlwind. He poured himself a glass of water but found his hands shaking. Could fate be so cruel, or so poetic? For years he had lived with emptiness, believing his choices had cost him love. And now, in this courtroom, fate had brought him face to face with the truth he had never dared to seek. The recess stretched like eternity. Sterling wrestled with questions. If they were his children, had Elena hidden them from him, or had he abandoned them unknowingly? Was she guilty of the crime, or was this all a consequence of the life he had chosen? And most importantly, what would justice mean now, for her, for them, for him? When court resumed, Sterling's demeanor had shifted. His voice carried the same authority, but beneath it was something softer, something human. He called for Elena to take the stand. Elena walked slowly, her heart pounding. She looked at Sterling, her eyes meeting his for the first time in years. There was recognition, pain, and an unspoken truth between them. "Mrs. Carter," Sterling said, his voice lower now. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Elena's lips trembled. I only have the truth to give, Your Honor. I never stole. The estate in question belonged to a man who promised to help us, but when he died, his heirs tried to erase us, to erase my children. The papers I signed were not to deceive, but to claim what was rightfully theirs. I raised my children alone because the man who should have been there, she paused, her voice breaking, was gone. The room fell silent. Sterling's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, to confess, to break the chains of silence. But the law, the eyes of the court, and the world watching held him bound. Yet he knew one thing: he could not let injustice destroy the woman he once loved, nor the children who might be his own flesh and blood. Over the next days, the trial unfolded like a storm. Witnesses came forward, evidence was dissected, and arguments grew fierce. The prosecutor painted Elena as a cunning manipulator, while the defense highlighted her sacrifices and truth. Through it all, the triplets stood by her, never faltering, never giving in to despair. And Sterling, he carried the weight of dual roles, judge and father, enforcer of law and keeper of secrets. Every night he wrestled with the choice between justice and revelation, between his duty and his heart. Until finally, the moment of judgment arrived. The courtroom held its breath as Sterling rose to deliver the verdict. His voice was steady, but his eyes shone with something more than authority, they shone with truth. This court finds the defendant, Elena Carter, not guilty. Gasps filled the room. Relief flooded Elena's face, and the triplets embraced her, tears streaming down their cheeks. But Sterling was not done. He looked at the family before him, his heart laid bare. And before this court disperses, I must speak not as a judge, but as a man. Years ago, I made choices that separated me from someone I loved deeply. Today, I see the results of those choices standing before me. Daniel, David, Diana, you are more than just children defending their mother. You are my children. The room erupted into chaos, shouts, gasps, disbelief. Elena covered her mouth, tears pouring down her face. The triplets froze, stunned beyond words. Sterling stepped down from his bench, his gavel left behind. He approached them slowly, his voice breaking. I cannot undo the years I lost. I cannot erase the pain I caused. But if you allow me, I want to be part of your lives. Not as Judge Sterling, not as a billionaire, but as your father. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Then Daniel stepped forward, tears in his eyes. We stood here today to defend our mother. Maybe tomorrow, we'll learn how to forgive our father. And with that, the triplets embraced him, Elena standing beside them, the family once torn apart by secrets now bound together by truth. The courtroom, once filled with judgment, now bore witness to something far greater: redemption.